Humanity's quiet love. 2 souls, 1 mission, the outpost floated alone in the dark, far from trade lanes and bright stars. It was small, old, and quiet. Most ships passed this region without slowing down. There was nothing here that promised wealth or power. That was why humanity had chosen this place. Inside the outpost, soft lights glowed along narrow corridors. Machines hummed in steady rhythm, like a calm heartbeat. Elias sat at the main console, eyes moving between lines of data. He had been here for 3 years, yet the silence still felt heavy at times. Elias was not a soldier. He had no taste for battle or command. He was an engineer, trained to listen to machines the way others listen to people. He believed every system spoke, if one paid enough attention. Across the room, Mira stood near the wide observation window. Beyond, the glass stretched endless black, dotted with distant stars. She watched them the way some people watched oceans. Calm on the surface, deep, with hidden motion. Mira was a cultural liaison, though there were no cultures nearby. Her role was meant for future contact, for understanding instead of conquest. Some in Earth Command called her position pointless. Others believed it was the most important job humanity had. They worked in silence, comfortable with it. Words were not always needed. Over time, silence became a shared language. Elias broke it first. "Power levels are stable," he said. His voice was low, careful not to disturb the quiet. Mira nodded without turning. "No new signals?" "Nothing unusual," Elias replied. "Just the background noise." That should have been the end of it. Then the console chimed. The sound was soft, but sharp enough to cut through the calm. Elias straightened at once. His fingers moved fast, pulling the signal into focus. "That's strange," he said. Mira turned from the window. "What is it? I don't know yet." His eyes narrowed. "It's weak, almost buried." She stepped closer, watching the screen fill with shifting patterns. "Is it a ship?" "No," Elias said slowly. "It's older. Or broken. Or both." The signal flickered, as if struggling to exist. Parts of it were missing. Others repeated again and again. Mira felt a chill. "Can you clean it?" "I'll try." Minutes passed. The outpost seemed to hold its breath. The machines worked harder, pulling fragments together. Sounds emerged. Not words at first, just tones. Long, uneven tones. Then meaning. Elias froze. Mira saw his face change. "Elias?" "It's a distress call," he said, from multiple sources. "That's not possible." "It shouldn't be," he agreed. "But it's layered, like many voices pressed into one." Mira leaned closer. "Who sent it?" Elias hesitated. "That's the problem. I don't recognize the signatures." The screen flashed. Symbols appeared, then faded. Some looked like math. Others looked like art. Mira's breath caught. "These aren't human." "No," Elias said, "and they're not from any known species." The signal surged suddenly, clearer now, as if sensing it was being heard. A phrase repeated, translated by the system with difficulty. "We are already gone." The room felt smaller. Mira wrapped her arms around herself. "Gone how?" The signal answered, though not directly. Images flooded the screen. Worlds dimming. Cities silent. Ships drifting without power. Then darkness. Elias swallowed. "This isn't a warning," he said. "It's a record." Mira shook her head. Why send it now? Before he could answer, the signal changed again. A final fragment appeared, sharp and clear. "They are coming." The transmission ended. Silence returned, heavier than before. Mira spoke first. "Send it to Earth." Elias nodded and began the process. Data streamed toward the distant homeworld, carried by tight beam relay. It would take hours to arrive, longer for response. They waited. Time moved slowly on the outpost. The stars outside did not change. The machines kept humming. Mira paced the room. "If this is real, others may have heard it too." "Or tried to," Elias said. "This signal was barely alive, which means it was meant to be hard to find." "Yes," he said. "Or it was never meant to be found by us." The console chimed again. Elias turned fast. That was quick. He opened the message from Earth Command. His face became unreadable. Mira stepped closer. "What did they say?" Elias took a breath. "They confirm receipt. They order us to continue observation only." Mira stared at him. "That's it?" "They say more analysis is needed." No engagement. No response. Mira's hands clenched. Those voices were dying Elias. "I know. And someone erased them." "I know," he said again. She walked back to the window. anger and fear mixing in her chest. "We're just supposed to watch? That's the mission," Elias said quietly. Outside, something moved. Not fast. Not bright. Just a distortion at the edge of sight. Elias saw it too. "Did you see that?" Mira asked. "Yes." The sensors reacted late, as if confused. A shape appeared, then vanished. "No identification," Elias said. "No drive signature." Mira felt her pulse rise. That wasn't debris. No. The outpost lights flickered once. Mira turned slowly. That signal didn't come from the past, did it? Elias didn't answer right away. "No," he said finally. "It came from nearby." The silence returned, but this time it was not calm. Far away, unseen eyes had noticed the quiet place where two humans listened when others did not. The outpost was quiet, but the quiet had changed. It no longer felt safe. The signal they had intercepted had left a weight in the room, pressing against the walls and floors like invisible hands. Mira could feel it in her chest, a rhythm that matched the machine's hum but was heavier, darker. Elias worked at the console, running simulations, cross-checking every fragment of the signal. His fingers moved quickly over the keys, but his eyes kept flicking toward the observation window. He could see nothing unusual outside, yet he knew something was there, something waiting. "The fragments," he said finally, without looking up. "They don't just warn of a threat. They tell a story." Mira came closer, leaning over his shoulder. "A story?" "Yes," he said. "It's a story of collapse. Civilizations gone, ships abandoned, planets emptied, and it happened faster than any natural disaster could explain." He paused, tapping the screen, almost as if something hunted them. Mira swallowed. "Hunted them? Like predators?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, but not just for food or territory. For erasure. Complete erasure. Every trace gone." Mira turned back to the window. The stars outside were unchanged, but her mind painted them with fear. "And now they know we are here." "They might," Elias said quietly, "or maybe they already knew." The next hours passed in tense silence. Every beep of the console, every flicker of light made Mira flinch. When she walked through the corridors, she felt as though invisible eyes followed her. She wanted to speak, to break the tension, but no words felt right. Then the outpost received another message. This time it was different. Not from Earth Command, not official. It was a short transmission, almost lost in the noise. Only a few words, repeated again and again. "Do not trust them. Do not move. Leave while you can." Elias froze. "Do not trust who?" The signal vanished before they could reply. Mira felt her stomach tighten. "Who sent it?" she asked. "I don't know," Elias said. "It doesn't match any known life form, human or alien. But it was deliberate. Someone wanted us to hear it." Mira leaned back, thinking, "It could be a trap." "Or a warning," Elias replied. "Either way, it's real, and it changes nothing." "Earth still orders observation only?" Mira's hands curled into fists. "Observation only," she repeated bitterly. "Watching others die while we do nothing?" Elias said nothing. He had already made his decision. They had to act, quietly, carefully, without alerting Earth, without inviting disaster. The next day they prepared a small shuttle. It was unarmed, meant only for travel and communication. They would leave the outpost for a short mission, to trace the origin of the warning signal and understand what they were up against. "Are you sure about this?" Mira asked. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Elias nodded. "We can't wait. The longer we stay here, the more likely they notice us." They suited up and stepped into the shuttle. The engines hummed softly. The stars outside stretched as they accelerated toward the signal's origin. The journey was tense. Mira stared at the dark expanse, wondering what they would find. Elias monitored every system, his mind racing with calculations and predictions. Neither spoke much. Words felt heavy and unnecessary. After several hours, they reached the location. What they found was not a ship, not a planet, but debris, floating pieces of metal, twisted and blackened, shattered remains of something once alive. Mira swallowed hard. "What is this?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but it's not natural. Look at the pattern. Deliberate destruction." They moved closer. Among the wreckage, they found a small survivor. A creature no taller than a human, with thin limbs and soft, glowing skin. It trembled at their approach. "Are you hurt?" Mira asked gently. The creature emitted soft sounds, almost musical. Elias adjusted the translator. Slowly the words became understandable. They are coming. Many. Taken. Few remain." Mira's eyes filled. "You're safe now." she whispered. The creature shivered. Do not follow. They hunt. Who are they? The creature looked toward the dark expanse of space. Those who race. We hide. We survive. Mira glanced at Elias. They are not just predators, she said. They are executioners. The creature's eyes, large and luminous, seemed to plead. Elias felt a cold fear settle in his chest. This small being carried knowledge that Earth could not yet imagine, and if ignored, it meant certain death for others. We can help, Mira said softly. We can warn others. We can save lives. The creature hesitated. Help? Humans? Elias nodded. We don't fight to destroy. We fight to protect. For a long moment, the creature studied them. Then it gave a small, cautious nod. It would trust them, at least for now. They returned to the shuttle with the creature. The journey back was heavier than the outward trip. Every shadow outside, every flicker of light felt like a threat. Elias kept systems running perfectly, though his mind raced with plans. Mira sat beside the creature, trying to calm it. Neither of them spoke much. Silence had returned, but it was a different silence now, one filled with urgency and the weight of responsibility. When they returned to the outpost, Earth Command messages were waiting. They were short, almost cold, no praise, no question about their discovery, only a reminder. Observe. Do not interfere. Mira's hands trembled as she read them. They don't understand. They won't help. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we do. That night, the outpost was quiet again, but in a different way. Outside, the stars seemed sharper, colder. Inside, the machines hummed. And in the shadows, something moved. Not a threat yet, not a predator. Just an awareness. Something had noticed humanity's quiet intervention. And it would not forget. Mira watched Elias as he worked at the console. They shared no words, only understanding. The mission had changed. Observation was no longer enough, and in that realization, the first true tension settled in. Humanity had been quiet, unnoticed. But now, the galaxy had begun to see them. The creature, fragile and small, remained at the outpost, hidden in a secure room. Mira visited it often, speaking softly, trying to calm its fear. It did not have a name. Myra had not tried to give it one. Names were human tools, and the creature seemed to exist in a different rhythm, a different logic. Elias worked constantly, scanning the stars and signals, cross-checking the fragments they had gathered. Every piece of data they collected now carried urgency. The galaxy was not as empty as it appeared. Somewhere out there, a force moved deliberately, erasing lives with cold efficiency. The creature's presence reminded them both of what was at stake. It did not speak in the way humans did, but it communicated enough for Elias and Mira to understand the scale of the threat. Entire systems could vanish without warning. The galaxy was far larger than Earth Command understood, far more dangerous than anyone had admitted. One morning, Mira found the creature tracing patterns in the dust of the floor. Lines, circles, and angles, connecting points she could not understand. "What is this?" she asked. The creature's eyes glowed faintly. The translator hummed, slow and careful. "Map, survival, roots, hidden." Elias appeared behind her. "It knows where the danger moves?" "Yes," Mira said. "It has survived by understanding patterns, movement, timing, escape. That is how it lives." Elias frowned. "Then we can follow it. Learn from it?" Mira shook her head. "We cannot move openly. Earth will notice. And if the hunters detect us..." She did not finish. He understood. The threat was not just the distant galaxy. It was something that could appear without warning, something that would strike before anyone had time to act. Humanity's quiet mission had shifted. Observation was no longer enough. They decided to send a small probe disguised as a routine scanning mission to trace the routes the creature suggested. The probe would move quickly, relay back any signals, and remain invisible to anything that might be watching. When they launched it, both Elias and Mira watched with tense focus. The probe navigated asteroid fields and dead zones of space, following paths that seemed illogical to normal charts, but each turn matched the patterns the creature had drawn. Hours passed. The probe returned fragments of data, ruined stations, drifting ships, silent worlds. Every signal confirmed what they feared. Entire civilizations had been erased, and the traces were deliberate, systematic. Elias leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "It's worse than we imagined. They don't just destroy. They remove. Nothing remains." Mira's eyes were fixed on the creature who crouched quietly in its corner, And yet, it survived. Yes, Elias said. Because it hid, because it learned, because it adapted. The tension grew. The probe detected something else, moving with intent. Not random debris. Not natural formations, it was a vessel. Sleek, angular, fast. It moved with awareness, scanning, calculating. They are watching, Elias said, voice low. Closer than we expected. Mira's hands trembled slightly. Then we are not alone. No, Elias replied, and we never were. The outpost sensors picked up multiple signals shortly after. Weak at first, but growing steadily. Elias analyzed the data. It's a fleet, he said. Small, but organized. They're moving toward us. Mira felt her pulse quicken. How many? Enough, Elias said grimly. Enough to threaten the outpost if they want. They faced a choice. Earth Command would not authorize any action beyond observation. They could obey orders, hide, and hope the outpost survived. Or they could act quietly, intervene without weapons, and risk being labeled rogue agents. Mira met Elias's eyes. No words were necessary. They had already chosen. Humanity's mission was no longer passive. It was active. It was survival, not only for themselves but for others. They prepared the shuttle again, small and unarmed, carrying the creature and essential supplies. They would leave the outpost to follow the patterns the creature had drawn, seeking allies and survivors among the stars. The journey was tense. Every sensor blip made them flinch. Every faint shadow against a distant star was a potential threat. The creature remained calm, moving in small, careful steps, guiding them. They reached a silent station, drifting near a dead world. Its hull was scorched, windows shattered. Inside, they found survivors, a small group of beings with pale, thin skin, and eyes that glowed faintly in dim light. They had hidden in the station's maintenance tunnels, avoiding detection for months. The survivors were cautious. They had been betrayed before. Mira spoke softly, explaining their intentions. Elias translated. Slowly trust began to grow. We do not fight, Mira said. We protect. We listen. We help. The survivors studied them, then nodded. Small, careful gestures of agreement. They would join, cautiously, sharing information about the hunters and their movements. Elias and Mira felt hope, fragile but present. Humanity's quiet strength, its empathy, patience, and willingness to act without violence began to show results. But the calm did not last. The hunters were close. Sensors detected distortions in space, objects moving faster than any normal vessel should. Shadows without shapes, awareness without forms. They are near, Elias said, and they know we are here. Mira held the creature close. We move faster. We stay hidden. We learn. The survivors followed. The crew of humans, small in number, unarmed, relied on knowledge and care rather than force. Every jump through space was calculated, every stop carefully chosen. One night, as they rested near a distant asteroid belt, Mira looked out the viewport. The stars were cold and endless. How many have survived like this? She whispered. Not many, Elias said, but enough to make a difference. Enough to resist. The creature moved beside her, glowing faintly. It seemed to understand her words. It had already seen the cost of failure. It had already seen worlds vanish. They were not just following signals now. They were following hope, fragile as it was. And somewhere out there the hunters moved, silent and deliberate. They had not yet struck, but they would. The mission had changed. Humanity's quiet listening had become action. Their empathy had become strategy. And their courage, quiet and steady, had begun to ripple outward, reaching species who had only known fear. Mira took a deep breath, watching the stars. We are not alone, she said. No, Elias said softly, and we never will be. Not if we keep listening, not if we keep moving. The fleet of shadows had not found them yet, but they would. And when they did, humanity would be ready, not with weapons, but with the determination to protect, to survive, and to show that even the quietest species could make a difference in a galaxy that had forgotten how to care. The stars outside the shuttle stretched and shifted. Somewhere, far ahead, signals waited, waiting to be found. And humanity, quiet and careful, moved toward them, carrying hope in its small, steady hands. The silence of space had changed again. Now it carried tension, possibility, and the faintest echo of something stronger than fear, the quiet courage of a species determined to protect life, even when all odds were against them. The journey grew harder with every jump. The shuttle moved through dark paths that charts did not trust. Elias followed the patterns with care, checking every move twice. The survivors stayed silent, watching space as if it might suddenly turn against them. The creature remained calm, guiding them with small gestures and glowing marks that only it seemed to understand fully. Mira spent most of her time listening. She listened to the survivors' stories, short and broken, filled with fear and loss, whole cities gone in moments, signals cut mid-sentence, friends erased as if they had never existed. The hunters did not speak. They did not threaten. They simply arrived, and then everything ended. From these stories, a truth became clear. The hunters were not many, but they did not need to be. They struck with precision, choosing targets that could grow strong or unite others. Weak worlds were ignored, quiet worlds were watched. Growing worlds were erased. Humanity fit none of the patterns. That worried Mira more than anything. One cycle into their journey, Elias detected something new. A broad transmission, old but powerful, repeating across a wide region of space. It was not a distress call. It was a warning meant for anyone who still lived. Multiple sources, Elias said. Different species, different languages. But the meaning is the same. Mira leaned closer. What does it say? Elias swallowed. Do not gather. Do not build alliances. Unity invites destruction. The survivors reacted at once. Fear spread through them. Some backed away. Others argued in sharp, frightened tones. They broke us that way, one of them said through the translator. They taught us to hide alone, to distrust help. Mira felt anger rise in her chest, calm but strong. That's how they win, she said softly. Not by force alone, but by fear. Elias nodded. They isolate, then erase. The shuttle received another signal, this one far stronger. It came from a dense star cluster, filled with old stations and hidden paths. It was a gathering point. Against all warnings, someone had chosen unity. Mira met Elias's eyes. That's a risk. Yes, Elias said, and also a chance. They approached carefully, masking their signature. As they moved closer, the sensors filled with life signs. Many species, many ships. Damaged, repaired, patched together with care and hope. When they arrived, weapons did not greet them. Instead, silence did. Watchful, cautious silence. A small vessel approached, slow and open. Its message was simple. Identify. Explain. No sudden moves. Mira answered. She spoke plainly, without pride or fear. She explained who they were, what they had seen, and why they had come. She spoke of listening, of choosing to help when others turned away. The response took time. Long minutes passed. Then permission came. They entered the cluster. Inside, Mira saw what the galaxy had become. Survivors living side by side, not in harmony, but in careful balance. Each group kept distance. Each ship held its own space. Trust was fragile. A council formed, made of many shapes and voices. Some were calm. Others burned with anger. All carried loss. You are human, one voice said. Your kind is new, untested. Why risk yourselves? Mira answered honestly. Because we can listen. Because doing nothing will only make us next. Another voice cut in. You bring danger. The hunters will follow. Elias stepped forward. They already watch. They always have. The choice is not between safety and risk. It is between fear and purpose. The council argued long into the cycle. Some wanted the humans gone. Others saw value in their approach. No weapons, no demands, only shared knowledge and careful movement. Then the hunters struck, not with ships, not with fire, with silence. Communications failed across the cluster. Power systems flickered, navigation data twisted. Panic spread fast. They're here, someone shouted. Elias worked fast, isolating systems, rerouting power. They're probing, he said, testing responses. Mira moved through the chaos, calming where she could, guiding people to safe zones. She spoke clearly, steadily. Fear fed the hunters, calm slowed them. Then the shadows appeared, not fully visible, just distortions, gaps where stars should be. The survivors panicked. Some fired weapons. The shots vanished into nothing. They're learning, Elias said tightly. Every reaction teaches them. Mira looked at the shadows and made a choice. She opened a wide transmission. We see you, she said. We know what you do. You erase what you fear. The shadows paused. The council cried out, begging her to stop. Mira continued. We are not here to fight you. We are here to protect life. You cannot erase that by force. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pressure filled the space. Not physical, mental, cold, and heavy. A voice entered every system at once. Flat, ancient, unity is disorder. Growth is threat, silence is peace. Mira's hands shook, but her voice held. Peace without life is nothing. The pressure increased. Lights dimmed. Systems screamed. Elias rerouted power to the shields, thin as they were. "They're pushing," he said. "Hard." The creature moved to the center of the room. Its glow brightened. It projected patterns into the air. Paths. Movements. Weak points. They can't see this, Elias realized. They don't understand care. Only control. Using the patterns, the cluster ships moved, not to attack, but to confuse. They spread, overlapped signals, created noise without aggression. The shadows faltered. For the first time, the hunters withdrew. Not defeated, not destroyed, but delayed. Silence returned, broken and shaky. The council stared at the humans, fear mixed with something new. Hope. "You drew their attention," one voice said. "You may have doomed us later. Or bought you time," Mira replied. "Time to prepare. Together." Earth Command signals finally reached them, sharp and urgent. Orders to withdraw. To return. To stop. Elias looked at the message, then closed it. "They're afraid," he said. "They still think staying quiet will save us." Mira watched the survivors begin repairs, helping one another without being asked. "Quiet love," she said softly, "is still love, but it doesn't mean we stand still." A decision spread through the cluster. Slow, careful, but real. They would stay together. Share knowledge. Move as one when needed, but without aggression. Humanity had been seen. Not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as a spark. Far away, the hunters regrouped. They had learned something new. Something dangerous. The quiet species did not obey fear. And that made them a problem that could not be erased easily. The cluster did not sleep after the hunters withdrew. I did it. I would be so happy. Ships moved slowly, repairing damage, sharing power, passing tools and data from one hull to another. Fear still lived in every corner, but it no longer ruled everything. Something else had taken its place. Caution mixed with purpose. Mira walked through the main hub of the largest station. The air was thin but warm. Beings of many kinds gathered there, speaking in low voices. Some looked at her with open doubt. Others watched with quiet respect. None ignored her now. Elias remained near the core systems, working with several technicians from different species. They spoke through translators, but meaning came easily. Numbers, patterns, timing, these were shared languages. "They will return," one technician said. "They always do." "Yes," Elias replied. "But next time, we will be ready in a different way." The creature stood nearby, its glow soft but steady. It had not left Elias and Mira since the first contact. It watched the systems with deep focus, as if it could feel movements long before sensors reacted. Mira joined Elias. "Earth keeps calling," she said quietly. He nodded. "I know. They are ordering us home." "Yes. And—" Elias looked at the cluster around them. "If we leave now, this place will fall. Not today, but soon." Mira took a slow breath. "Then we stay." The decision was simple. The consequences were not. They sent a message back to Earth. Short. Clear. Honest. Humanity had been seen. The threat was real. Withdrawal would not protect anyone. Silence was no longer safety. The reply came hours later. It was not approval. It was fear, wrapped in careful words. Earth Command warned them of consequences, of loss of support, of isolation. Elias closed the channel. "We are already isolated," he said. The hunters did not strike again immediately. Instead, strange things began to happen across nearby space. Signals twisted, old routes collapsed, safe paths vanished. It was not an attack. It was pressure. "They're shaping the space around us," Elias said, "forcing us inward." Mira understood. "They want us gathered. Easier to watch. Easier to end." The council met again. Tension filled the chamber. Some wanted to scatter, to hide alone as before. Others argued that unity was the only chance left. Mira spoke calmly. "They erase what they can predict, what follows old rules. We don't need to be strong. We need to be unexpected." The creature stepped forward, projecting its glowing patterns again, not just paths now, but moments. Timing gaps where the hunters could not see. Elias studied them. "These aren't just escape routes," he said. Their blind spots. Hope stirred, fragile but real. A plan formed. Dangerous, quiet, small. They would not fight the hunters. They would speak to them, not through weapons or force, but through presence. The hunters believed unity was disorder, growth was threat. Mira saw the flaw. The hunters had never known care, never known choice. If we show them what we protect, she said, they will have to look. The council resisted. They will destroy you. Maybe, Elias said, but they already planned to destroy all of us. The mission was set. One ship, small, unarmed, carrying only a message and proof of shared life. Elias and Mira volunteered without hesitation. Others tried to stop them. The creature moved to their side, glowing brighter. It would go too. The ship launched quietly, slipping through one of the blind paths. The cluster watched in silence as it vanished into dark space. The journey was tense. Systems flickered under strange pressure. Space itself seemed to resist their movement. Then the hunters appeared. Not as shadows this time, as shapes. Vast and sharp, bending light around them, ancient and cold. The ship shook. Elias fought to keep control. They're pulling us in. Mira opened the transmission. Her voice carried across every channel. We came to speak, she said, not to challenge you. The pressure increased. You bring disorder, the ancient voice replied. You spread it. Mira's hands trembled. She steadied herself. We bring choice. That frightens you. Images filled the space between them. Children of many species learning together. Survivors repairing ships side by side. Quiet acts of care. No weapons. No dominance. The hunters hesitated. This is inefficiency, the voice said. Yes, Mira replied, and that is why it survives. The pressure grew unbearable. Systems failed. The ship went dark. In the silence, the creature stepped forward. Its glow filled the chamber. It sent its own message. Not words. Memory. The hunter saw what they had erased. Every life. Every moment. Every future cut short. For the first time, the ancient presence faltered. You choose loss, Mira said softly. We choose love. Quietly. Again and again. The hunters withdrew. Not in defeat, in uncertainty. The ship drifted, powerless. Back at the cluster, sensors screamed, then went still. Hours passed. No sign. Many believed the humans were gone.
Then a signal appeared. Weak.
Human. The ship was alive. Cheers did not erupt. Instead, relief spread slowly, deeply. Elias and Mira returned changed. Tired. Scarred. But alive. The hunters did not vanish. They did not surrender. But they stopped advancing. The galaxy breathed just a little. Humanity had not won a war. They had started something far harder to erase. And somewhere in the dark, ancient minds struggled to understand a force they had never planned for. Quiet love. The galaxy had changed quietly, almost imperceptibly. Systems that had been silent now hummed with cautious activity. Survivors moved more openly, sharing resources and knowledge. They did not celebrate. There was no victory parade. There was only life, fragile and slow, returning where fear had once ruled. Elias and Mira returned to the cluster's main station, their ship battered but intact. The creature remained with them, glowing softly, its patterns now familiar to all who had followed. They were not seen as heroes, not yet. They were witnesses. They were caretakers. The council met as they always did, a gathering of many species, shapes, and voices. No words could fully describe the fear they had survived, nor the hope they now felt. Elias and Mira spoke only when necessary, choosing clarity over speeches. Their message was simple. Survival depended on care, on attention, on protecting one another without dominance or fear. One of the survivors, a tall being with amber eyes, approached them. You brought something we have forgotten, said softly. We feared togetherness, but now, perhaps we can try again. Mira nodded. Not with weapons. Not by force. By patience. By listening. By helping when no one else would. Elias stood beside her, scanning the stars through the observation windows. The galaxy outside seemed wider, colder, yet alive in new ways. The hunters have not left, he said. They are still out there, watching, waiting, learning. And we are learning too, Mira replied. They expect fear. They expect silence. We give them something else. The survivors worked together, slowly restoring damaged stations, repairing ships, sharing knowledge across the cluster. Some spoke of fear still, memories of lost worlds and vanished civilizations. Others spoke of hope, hesitant but persistent. In the quiet moments, Mira and Elias walked among them, offering comfort, listening, watching. The creature moved between groups, glowing faintly. Its patterns now projected into the air, showing safe routes, hidden pockets, ways to avoid detection. It was a guide, a teacher, and a reminder of what had survived by care and attention. Mira paused at a viewport, looking out at the distant stars. "Do you think they understand?" she asked quietly. "The hunters?" Elias looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. "No, not fully, but they have felt the effect of choice. That is something new." Silence fell over them. Outside, stars twinkled coldly. Inside, life moved cautiously, deliberately. There were no cheers, no songs, only steady work and quiet determination. Then a faint signal reached them. Earth command, formal, distant, and still cautious. The words were simple. Report. Status. Return. Mira read it aloud. They expect obedience. They expect fear. Elias shook his head. "We cannot return yet. Not without purpose. Not without change." The council nodded in agreement. Humanity had become more than observers. They had become a symbol, not of war, not of dominance, of survival, of empathy, of quiet courage that refused to be erased. In the following cycles, they sent small missions, guided by the creature's patterns. They rescued isolated survivors, delivered food and supplies to damaged stations, repaired communication links that had gone silent for years. Each act was quiet, each act was deliberate. And each act left a ripple, a small light that the hunters could not erase. One evening, as the cluster rotated slowly around a distant star, Mira stood beside Elias again. The creature hovered between them, its glow soft and comforting. Mira spoke quietly. "Do you ever wonder if we changed anything?" Elias looked out at the void. "Yes, not the galaxy entirely. Not the hunters, but something smaller, something real. Life that could have ended now continues." Mira nodded. "It feels small, but it matters." The creature's glow pulsed, almost as if it understood. It had seen the cost of silence, of fear, of destruction. It had seen humanity act differently, act with care instead of aggression, and that action had created a new pattern in the galaxy, one that could not be ignored. Then the first new signals arrived from systems thought lost, weak, fragmented, but unmistakably alive. Ships moving, colonies reconnecting, voices speaking. The galaxy was not healed, it was not safe, but it was awake. Elias and Mira watched the displays, feeling the weight of every life that flickered back into existence. They did not smile. They did not celebrate. They only continued their work, listening, guiding, protecting. In the quiet, Mira said, "We are not done. Not yet." "No," Elias replied. "We never will be done, and we should not be." Far away, the hunters observed. They had seen something unexpected. Species working together, not for conquest, not for power, but simply to survive and protect one another. Something beyond their logic, something that could not be erased easily. Back in the cluster, humans and survivors moved side by side, repairing, connecting, learning. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, it had not defeated the hunters, but it had done something harder. It had shown that life could be defended quietly, that care could be stronger than fear, and that even the smallest acts of courage could create patterns the ancient and powerful could not fully predict. Mira leaned against the viewport, Elias beside her, and the creature hovering quietly. Stars stretched endlessly before them, distant, cold, yet full of possibility. "Quiet love," Mira said softly. "It survives." "Yes," Elias replied. "It survives, and it grows." The galaxy remained dangerous. Shadows still moved in hidden spaces. Ancient forces still watched. But humanity, small, quiet, and patient, had left a mark that could not be erased. And in that quiet mark lay hope, fragile and steady, ready to endure across the endless stars. Humanity's quiet love, 2 souls, 1 mission, had changed the course of worlds without striking a single blow. And it would continue, in silence, in care, and in courage, as long as they chose to listen and act. The stars outside the cluster burned cold and distant. Inside, life moved quietly, carefully, and deliberately. The galaxy had seen humanity, and humanity, in its quiet strength, had begun to teach it how to survive without fear.